Hi, I'm Anita. Welcome to my channel and to another tutorial. Today we're going to be learning how to make the crossed stars bracelet. I did an earlier version of this today and it's in a pastel blue. I'll give you a quick glimpse of what that looks like shortly. But what you're going to be using for today's bracelet, you're going to be using 4-pound fireline, and you're going to need about 5 yards. So we'll be cutting these in increments for the different pieces as we make our bracelet because it's done in components. You're going to be needing 3mm crystals. These are cubed crystals. If you don't have cubed crystals, you can probably use any 3mm bead of your choice. I'm also using 11-0 Miyuki seed beads in galvanized silver, also 15-0 in that same color. I need using a gram of 11-0s and about 3 grams of the 15-0s. And I'm using SuperDuos. I've got about 8 grams here. For this particular bracelet, it's about 112 SuperDuo beads. The pattern actually calls for Super 8s, which is a tad smaller than SuperDuos, but you can do it with either bead. If you have Super 8s, you can certainly try to make it with that. I am using SuperDuos today. And then I've got a size 10 beading needle, sharp pair of scissors, and I'm going to use the magnetic clasp in today's project. So gather all your materials and we'll get started. Okay, you're going to start by threading your needle with about 1 yard of 4-pound fireline. And let me show you what we're making today, although you've already seen a picture of it at the introduction. These are the different components that you're going to be putting together today. On this particular one, I used a ball and socket clasp. If you've never seen one of these, this is what it looks like, and it just snaps into place like that. But I decided for today I was going to simplify things and just use a magnetic clasp. That will eliminate having to use wire guards and an O-ring, which would add extra length to this. The bracelet I did in this color, which is a very light sapphire blue, this ended up being a finished length of 7.5 inches, and I used approximately 6 of the components to make this bracelet. So for today's project, I'm going to be making this one a little bit smaller. So I'll be doing this one in 5 components, and that will probably end up being a finished bracelet of 6.5 inches. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, to start our bracelet, we're going to pick up an 11-0 and a 3mm cube. You're going to do that 4 times. So pick up another 11-0, a cube, an 11-0, a cube, and 11-0, and a cube, like that. So you should have a total of 4 of each, starting with the 11-0, ending with a cube. Now if you don't have 3mm cubes, I'm sure you can use any 3mm bead. That'll be fine. So pull your work down until you have about a 4-inch tail. So from here we're going to go back through our work in this direction. So bring your needle back through all of the beads. Make sure not to miss any. So it should look like that. Pull your thread. And we're going to go around these beads one more time. So you're exiting your cube bead right here. So you're going to go through all of the beads until you're back to where your tail thread is coming out. So just advance your needle. And this is just to give it extra strong reinforcement since this is our first round. Okay, so continue going through your beads. Got one more coming out of this cube here, and I'll be right where the tail thread is coming out. So pull your thread nice and snug. Make sure everything is nice and tight. Set your needle down, and we're going to do a surgeon's knot right here. To do a surgeon's knot, you're going to take the tail thread, cross over your working thread, and you're going to go through the loop twice. Like that. And pull your thread, making sure that knot is nice and tight. Now you're going to take your tail thread, cross over your working thread, and come through the loop once to do a half hitch knot on top of that. Pull your thread, and now you can cut that tail thread off. So that's what you should have so far. I'm going to turn this over like that. So your thread is right here where that knot is. What you want to do is advance your needle through the first 11-0, like that. So once you've advanced your needle through that 11-0, should be coming out right here, you're going to be picking up your SuperDuos. So we're going to pick up 5 SuperDuos. And a quick reminder here, when you're working with multi-hole beads, you want to make sure that none of your holes are blocked. When I did my first trial run making this bracelet in blue earlier today, I came across 4 SuperDuos that were clogged. And so just make sure you double check, make sure all of your beads are not having any problems like that. We're going to start by picking up a 15-0 and 5 SuperDuo beads. Doesn't matter which hole you go through. So now that I've got my 5 beads on, I'm going to pick up another 15-0. I'm going to exit that 11-0 going in through the next 11-0, like that, and pull your thread. And it's going to draw those together like that. So now we're going to repeat that step. You're going to pick up a 15-0, 5 SuperDuos, and another 15-0, like that. So I'm exiting this 11-0, going in through the next 11-0. So I'm skipping that crystal. So pull your thread. And that's going to position those right next to your cube like that. So you're going to do that 2 more times. You're going to pick up a 15-0, 5 SuperDuos, and a 15-0, and you're going to go into the next 11-0 bead here, and you're going to do that again, and then I'll meet you back. Okay, I'm coming down to my last round of 15-0, 5 SuperDuos, and a 15-0. I'm exiting that 11-0 bead, and I'm going into that 11-0 after the cube bead, like that. Pull it close together. If it gets twisted around, just untangle it. And you want to make sure there's no gaps here, so be careful with making sure that everything is nice and snug. So here you are coming out of that 11-0 bead. Advance your needle through that next 15-0. and then advance your needle through that SuperDuo top hole. So from here, we're going to start picking up 15-0s. So pick up a 15-0. You're exiting the top hole here, going into the next top hole. Repeat that again. Pick up a 15-0, exiting that SuperDuo, going in through the next empty hole, SuperDuo top hole. So I'm going to do that again 3 more times. So pick up a 15-0, exiting here, going into the next one. So do that 3 more times and I'll meet you back. Okay, I'm coming out of this top hole SuperDuo here at the end of that cluster of 5, and I'm going to go in through the next SuperDuo like that. So that's what you should have so far. So you notice this cluster of 5. Now I'm getting ready to work on this next cluster of 5. I just added my 15-0 here, coming out of that first SuperDuo. Here I'm going to put a picot. So I'm going to pick up 4 15-0s like that. Bring that down to your work. Now you're going to pass your needle back through the first 15-0 of that group and the top hole of the next SuperDuo, like that. Bring your needle through. And that's what you should have. So from here, we're going to pick up a SuperDuo, exiting this empty hole here, going into the next SuperDuo. Pull your thread, and you want that to seat in between those 2 like that. Now you're going to pick up another SuperDuo, exiting here, going into the next empty hole. Now we're going to pick up 4 15-0s. You're exiting this SuperDuo here. We need to go into the empty hole of the next one, and I noticed it flipped backwards, so you just fix these so that the empty hole should be on the outer edge like that. So once you have your 4 15-0s on, you're going to bring your needle back through the first 15-0 of that group, this one right here. Then you're going through the top hole of that next SuperDuo like that and pull. And that should form a picot in between those 2 SuperDuos like that. So now we're going to pick up a 15-0. We're exiting that SuperDuo here. We want to go into the empty hole of that next SuperDuo, which you have to flip it around if it's not facing the right direction. So we're going in through this SuperDuo right here, like that. Pull your thread, make sure everything's snug, and you're going to repeat that step 4 more times. You're picking up a 15-0, going into the empty hole of the next SuperDuo. So go ahead and do that, and I'll meet you back. Okay, I'm coming down to picking up my last 15-0 here, going into that next SuperDuo, like that. And now we're going to make a picot right here, like we did over here. So pick up 4 15-0s, like that. Bring that down to your work. Now bring your needle back through that first 15-0 and the empty hole of the next SuperDuo, like that. Now we're going to pick up a SuperDuo, go into the next empty hole of the next SuperDuo. And that should seat that in between those two. Now pick up another SuperDuo, go through the next empty hole. Now we're going to make a picot. So pick up 4 15-0s, bring that down to your work. Go back through the first 15-0 and through the empty hole of the next SuperDuo. So that's what you should have. And we're going to pick up a 15-0, we're exiting this SuperDuo here. We want to go into the empty hole of this last SuperDuo right here and pull. So that completes the pattern. Now these SuperDuos have a slightly rounder shape than the typical SuperDuo, so we'll see how this comes out. From here, I'm going to tie some half hitch knots, go around a couple more beads, and then we're going to set this piece aside. So exiting this SuperDuo here, advance your needle through the 15-0 and the next SuperDuo. Pull your thread. We're going to do a half hitch knot right here. So to do a half hitch knot, bring your needle under the thread bridge like that. Pull until you have a small loop. Pass your needle through that loop and pull. And you want that knot to seat nice and tight against your work. Now advance your needle through the next 15-0 and SuperDuo. And repeat that. Go under the thread bridge till you have a small loop. Bring your needle through and pull. Advance your needle again. Do one more knot. And advance your needle through. So that's what you have so far. So I'm going to set this aside. That's how you make the complete component. So for our next step, we're going to make a second component, and then I'm going to show you how to do the connection from there. So hold on, and I'll be right back. Okay, for our next step, you're going to cut another piece of fireline, a whole new piece of fireline, and this piece only needs to be about 1.5 feet in length. Thread that on your needle, and then we're going to make another square like we did on this first one. So you're going to pick up an 11-0, a cube. You're going to do that 4 times. An 11-0, a cube, an 11-0, a cube, an 11-0, and a cube. So like we did with this first component here, you're going to bring that down to your thread till you have 4 inches of thread. You're going to go back through all of the beads 2 times. You're going to go around twice, and then when you get to the tail, you're going to do your surgeon's knot and your half hitch knot. So go ahead and do that, and then I'll meet you back. Okay, once you've completed your square, you should have done a surgeon's knot and a half hitch knot, and then advance your needle through that next 11-0 and trim your tail thread off. So from here, you're going to pick up a 15-0, 5 SuperDuos, and a 15-0. Like that. Then you bring your needle through the next 11-0. Pull your thread. You're going to repeat that step 3 more times, and then I'll meet you back. Okay, I'm coming down to my last section here. Picked up my 15-0, 5 SuperDuos, and my 15-0. Exiting that 11-0, going into the next 11-0. Like that. Pull it nice and snug. It's going to be awkward until we get our next round on, but just try to keep all your work together. So now we're exiting the 11-0, go in through the 15-0. Like that. And now we want to advance our needle through the empty hole of the next SuperDuo. And as you can see, it's facing the wrong direction, so I just need to flip it over like that. Bring my needle through the empty hole. Now I'm going to add a 15-0 in between each of these. So 5 times you're going to pick up a 15-0, exiting here, going in through the next one. So do that a total of 5 times, and I'll meet you back. Okay, I'm picking up my last 15-0. Exiting that SuperDuo, going in through the next empty hole of that next SuperDuo. Like that. So here I'm going to do a picot, so I pick up 4 15-0s. Bring that down to your work. You want to bring your needle back through the first 15-0 and the empty hole of that next SuperDuo, like that. Now you're going to pick up a SuperDuo, go into the next empty hole, pick up another SuperDuo, go through the next empty hole. Just make sure it's positioned. It should be nestled in between those like that. And this one I need to flip up. So we're going to be putting a picot here. So like we did here, pick up 4 15-0s. Go back through the first 15-0. And through the empty hole of that next SuperDuo, like that. And I need to back up. Correction, you need to go through the first hole of the 15-0s, then you go through the empty hole of your next SuperDuo. Like that. There you go. Should be a picot there. So now we're going to repeat what we did on this side, you're going to pick up a 15-0, exiting that SuperDuo, going in through the empty hole of the next SuperDuo right here. Pick up another 15-0 and repeat that 4 more times, and I'll meet you back. Okay, I'm coming down to my last 15-0 out of that SuperDuo into the empty hole of the next SuperDuo, like that. All right, so now we're going to do another picot right here like we did here. Now on this step, we're going to only add 1 picot here, come up, and we're going to do the connection step. So pick up 4 15-0s like that, bring that down, go back through the first hole of that 15-0 and the empty hole of that next SuperDuo. So that puts the picot there, like that. So at this point, we're not going to complete the picot on the other side yet until we connect it with our first component. So that's going to be our next step. So this is what you should have. So far, you have your picots on these 2 at the bottom and this one here at the top. So grab your first component, and then we're going to put these together. So let me show you how to do that. So this is your first component, and you want the position to be exactly as this one is with the picots like that. So this is your first component. So we're going to take the second component and we're going to flip it upside down like this over the other one, like that. So from here, you're coming out of the SuperDuo after we did that picot up here. So you're going to bring your thread down through this SuperDuo here. So you have 3 sticking out here at the end. So you're going through that first one like that. Bring your thread through. Now you're going to bring your thread in through the SuperDuo above on that second component, which is next in line, like that. Pull your thread. Just going to draw that up. So with your thread coming out of this top one here in the middle, you're going to advance your needle through this next empty hole SuperDuo right here, like that. Pull your thread. And then advance your needle through your top component, that empty hole that's next in line right here, like that. If it gets caught on anything, just untangle it and pull. Pull nice and snug, and that's going to situate that right up against your first component like that. So with your thread coming out of the SuperDuo from your second component up here, we are going to pick up, we have to make our other picot on this side right here. So we're going to pick up 4 15-0s like that, exiting here, bring those down because we have to go through that first 15-0, like that. Then through the empty hole of the next SuperDuo, like that. So we want that picot to be directly opposite of where the other one is. So pull your thread nice and tight, and then we're going to pick up one more 15-0 to complete this round, exiting that SuperDuo, going into the empty hole of the next SuperDuo. Right here. Pull your thread. Once you pull your thread, that should complete this round, placing that 15-0 right there. That's how you connect your components. So what you need to do now is bring your thread through a couple of beads, and then we're going to tie a half-hitch knot. So go through the next couple of beads, do a half-hitch knot here, through a couple of more beads, another knot here. I like to do about 2 or 3 of these. So I'm going to go through another one and do one more knot, give it extra security. And then just advance your needle through a few more beads. And I'm going to clip this tail off. So that's what we have so far. So you're going to continue making components. And the only difference was with the first component, you're doing all of your picots all the way around. When you're adding components, you're only going to do picots up to these first 3. And then you're going to connect, and then you'll do your 4th picot after you connect. So go ahead and make however many components you want to make for your bracelet. Make the connection, and you can rewind the video to see how the connection's done. So go ahead and do that. I'm going to do 5 for this bracelet so that it's a 6.5 inch. And then I'll meet you back when I'm making the last component, and I'll show you how to attach the magnetic clasp. Okay, see you soon. Be right back. Okay, we're back. Now I just added my last component, and I'm coming out of one of my SuperDuo beads. What I want to do is advance my needle till I'm coming out of this left-hand side of this SuperDuo up here at the end. So I'm just going to travel through the 15-0, SuperDuo 15-0. I'm going to tie a half-hitch knot here just to get that secured. Travel up through a couple of more beads, like that. Continue advancing. And now I'm going to bring my needle up through the 15-0, SuperDuo, 15-0, and SuperDuo, like that. Now I'm going to come down through this bottom hole in the center SuperDuo, like that. and I'm going to reverse direction through the top hole and bring my needle through. Now I'm going through this bottom hole of that SuperDuo on the end, and then through the top hole like that. But before you go through that top hole, we're going to add 2 50-nos right here. So we're coming out of that bottom hole of that outer SuperDuo, going in through the top hole like that. So now I'm going to pick up 2 11-os, my clasp, and I'm using a magnetic clasp here, and then 2 11-os. Now I'm going to advance my needle through the other side of that SuperDuo, like that. Now I'm going to pick up 2 50-nos, go down through the bottom hole of that SuperDuo, like that. And I'm going to advance my needle through that top hole and bottom hole of the next 2 beads. And I'm going to reinforce my clasp. So I'm going back through these 2 50-no beads right here, through the top hole. Now I'm going through the 2 11-os and the clasp and the 11-os on the other side. Back through the SuperDuo and the 50-nos. And I'm going to reinforce it one more time. So you're going back through all 3 of those beads, like that. If you're using 6-pound fireline, you probably only need to do this twice, but I'm using 4-pound and I want it to be nice and secure, because this is going to be a stress point in the bracelet with the magnet here. So this will really keep it nice and secure, and this will last for decades. So now at this point, I've already reinforced it 3 times. I'm going to bring my needle back through all of these beads, and I'm just going to advance my needle. Oh, we'll go through these 2. So I'm just going to travel through the beads and tie a few half-hitch knots where I can. So I'm going to tie a knot here, bring it under a thread bridge, go through the loop, pull tight, advance through a few more beads, do another half-hitch knot, pull nice and tight, and you can clip your thread. So now we're going to repeat this on the other side. Now on the other side, you should have that thread left from when we did our first component. So you want to advance your needle like we did on this end to where you're coming out here, because we're going to put 2 50-nos here at the end. So we're going to travel through our beads like this, and it doesn't matter which direction you go, as long as you can get to the end point of our goal, which is to coming out of this bottom hole here, going this way. So I'm going to bring my needle through this bottom hole, and then the center bead bottom hole, like that. Now I'm going through the top hole right here, through the bottom hole of that outer SuperDuo, like that. So now I'm in position. So I'm going to pick up 2 15-ohs, go through the top hole of that SuperDuo. I'm going to pick up 2 11-ohs, the other side of my clasp, 2 more 11-ohs, coming through the other SuperDuo on the other side, top hole, pull your thread, pick up 2 more 15-ohs, coming down through that hole, through all 3 beads, and we're going to reinforce this 2 more times, like we did on the other side. So reinforce 2 more times, and then I'll meet you back. Okay, welcome back, and that completes this bracelet. So as you can see, this only has the 5 components, and with the magnetic clasp, my finished length ended up being about 6.5 inches. Now these particular SuperDuos are not the typical shape of what I was expecting for a SuperDuo. They seem to be a little bit larger than the typical SuperDuo. This other bracelet here that I made, these are more true SuperDuo shaped. As you can see, a huge difference. And these look smaller and have a tighter fit. And this particular bracelet, I used 6 components with a ball hitch clasp, and this ended up measuring 7.5 inches by the time I got done. So it's going to vary with whatever type of bead you use. You could probably try to do it with mini duos, and you might end up having to make as many components here, and it might be a 6-inch bracelet. So measure as you go along. That's usually the rule of thumb I do for myself, because you don't know the diameter, and measurements of these beads may vary depending on who the manufacturer is. So, but these ended up coming out really nice, and the nice thing about magnetic is you don't have to hassle with the clasps. So if you wanted to, you could probably put a lobster clasp and make it with an extender chain to where it's adjustable. So lots of options, and like I said, if you don't have the Q beads, you could probably use any 3mm bead in the center here. So experiment and see what works for you, and you'll come out with some gorgeous, beautiful pieces. So I hope that you enjoyed today's tutorial. I hope that you subscribe and like, and feel free to leave me a comment or any questions. And I do have the details of all of the materials you need in the description box. So if you click more at the intro to this video, you'll see a list of all the items with the measurements and weights. I also have a website where I sell my jewelry, and you'll see the link to that as well if you'd like to see what I have. I also will have these posted if you're interested in buying one. So these 2 pieces were actually from a book that I have. It's called Exquisite Stitching by Renee Kovnesky. She's the original designer on these. So you'll see the link to that book as well in the description box. So again, thank you for joining me. Have a wonderful week, and happy beading.